Hey guys, my name is Pixie, and today we're going to create a simple wallpaper app that gets updated in Firebase without having to update your actual app. Now before we begin, I will be using a different teaching method in the blocks portion of this video. If you're watching this video on a mobile phone, you can vote on whether you like this teaching style. To see if you're paying attention, there will be 5 little pop-ups throughout the video. If you follow the instructions in the pop-ups, then I will send you the Pixie Bomb Squad design for this tutorial. Now, this offer is only available until the end of April 2018. Now, the goal of this tutorial is to help you understand how to update your app without actually having to rebuild the app. In order to complete this tutorial, you are required to already have a little knowledge about Firebase. If you've never used Firebase, you might want to watch one of these 2 previous tutorials. That being said, let's plan out our wallpaper app. I'm assuming you already have some wallpapers that you want to use in your app. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm not going to create any wallpapers, I'm just going to grab some from the internet. I found these wallpapers at pexels.com, and there's a link to this website located in the video description. Keep in mind that if you use any wallpapers in your wallpaper app that you did not create, you must give credit to the original source somewhere in your app. Now I'm just going to pick 5 random wallpapers and save them to my computer. You'll notice that these wallpapers are all different sizes and they're intended for a computer desktop, so they're going to be really big. Ideally, you'll want to open them up in Photoshop or whatever image editing software that you're using. Now this step is optional, but it will help make your images look cleaner in the wallpaper app. If you've seen a lot of my previous tutorials, then you already know that the design standard for 2018 is a 9:16 ratio. I'll create a new document in Photoshop with a width of 1080 and a height of 1920. I can open up each of the 5 images that I've saved and drop them into my new document. Since these images are intended for a desktop, I might need to resize them or crop them a little so they look nice on a mobile phone. Once I get the wallpapers looking the way that I want, I can save over the original file. The name of the file doesn't matter. You can rename the wallpapers or leave them with their original names. Side by side, you can see what the wallpapers looked like before and what they look like after. Now that we've got our wallpapers organized, we can upload them to Firebase. Head over to Firebase. Remember that if you've never worked with Firebase, you might want to start with one of these 2 tutorials before continuing. Make sure that you're signed in and click on your Firebase project. The storage option is located on the left side menu. Before you upload any image, click on Rules. By default, the rules will only allow authenticated users to read or write to the storage bucket. If you're interested in changing the rules, make sure you read the storage security documents. Otherwise, this default setting is perfectly fine for this tutorial. Click back on the File menu. If this is your first time using the Firebase Storage, your menu should be empty. You can see that I've already created some folders. For this project, let's create a new folder called Wallpapers. Click on the folder once it's been created. Once you're in the Wallpapers directory, you can upload your wallpapers using the Upload File button. Select all of the wallpapers you want to use and then press Open. The file shouldn't take too long to upload, and you can see their progress beside each of the images. Once the files have finished uploading, click on one of the images. A preview window will appear with some more information about the image. Expand the File Location menu, and you'll notice 2 different URLs. For this tutorial, we'll need the download URL link. Next, right-click on Database and choose the option to open in a new tab. This is the same database that we used in the push notification tutorial and the Firebase tutorial, so you should be familiar with this screen. Remember that you should be using your own Firebase data, not mine. Hover over your database name and click the Add Child button, which is the little plus icon. Let's start by creating the project bucket, which is one of the properties we'll need for the Firebase component in AppyBuilder. Our project bucket will be called Wallpaper App, and our first tag will be called Tag List. Let's give this a default value of 0 and press Enter. We'll come back to this tag list in just a second. Hover over Wallpaper App and create another child element. Call this W1. This will be our first wallpaper. Click on the Storage tab, then select the first wallpaper you want to use. Click on the Download URL, which should automatically copy this link to your clipboard. Then click back on the Database tab. We're going to paste the URL as the value for W1. However, before you paste the tag, you need to format it. In the value text box, type double quotes / and another double quote. Then paste the URL. At the end of the URL, type / double quote and another double quote. Then press enter to place this tag into your database. It is very, very important that you follow this string formatting. Otherwise, if we were to paste the URL directly into the value text box without the string formatting, your image would not load. The reason being is because Firebase does not allow for special characters, and normal escape characters are not valid Firebase input. Without the Firebase string formatting, all we would see from the URL is HTTPS and nothing else. In order to retrieve the entire URL, we need to enclose the URL in a special string format. Now that you understand that, we can create the next image tag. Hover over Wallpaper App, create a new child element. Call this W2. Switch back over to the Storage tab and copy the URL from the second image. Switch over to the Database tab and start creating your string format. Then press Enter. Pause the video here and using the same pattern, finish creating the tags for all 5 images. Now, I recommend starting with 5 images. After you test the app and make sure it's working, then you can come back here and finish uploading some more images and creating some more tags. Unpause the video when you're ready to continue. You can see here that I now have 5 image tags named W1 through W5. We're going to use the tag list to indicate the wallpapers that we want to display on the app. If I enter the number 3, that means that I only want to display the first 3 wallpapers. If I enter the number 5, that means that I want to display all 5 of these wallpapers. If I enter the number 6, then my app will show an error because I've only created 5 wallpapers. Now, let's say that you only want to show 3 of these wallpapers, but you don't want to show the first 3. You specifically want to show wallpaper 1, 3, and 6. Rather than entering a number, you can instead enter the names of the tags. So enter W1, W3, W6. This is going to give us a comma-separated list that we can manipulate back in AppyBuilder. But just like the URLs, we need to format this string. If you decide to specify wallpapers in this manner, remember to add the special string formatting at the beginning of the value and at the end of the value, just like this. Now for this tutorial, let's just use the number 5. That will show all 5 of the images we're uploading. If you're just using a number, you don't need any special string formatting. We'll come back to this tag later when we test the app. Double check each of your tags and make sure the string formatting for each of the URLs is correct. When you're ready to continue, keep the Database tab open and head over to AppyBuilder. Once you're in design mode, style the screen however you want. You can see that I've changed the action bar color and the title of the screen, and that's about it. Start by adding a vertical scroll arrangement to the design. Set the horizontal alignment to center and change the width and height to fill parent so that this container takes up the entire screen. Then drop 10 image components inside of this container. Don't worry about renaming them and don't worry about changing their properties. We'll populate the images for these components dynamically in the blocks editor. Now for this design, of course, you're going to need the Wallpaper Manager, which you'll find in the Media palette. This component has no properties, so you don't need to set anything here. You'll also need a Firebase component for this design. Remember, you want to use your Firebase data for this app. We're not going to go over how to set up a Firebase component because that's already been covered in previous tutorials. Enter your Firebase token, your Firebase URL into the Properties window. The project bucket that we created earlier is called Wallpaper App. Once you've added your Firebase information to the Firebase component, drop a notifier component onto the screen. You can customize this if you want to, but it's not necessary. Lastly, add a clock component to the screen. This clock component is going to help us load each of the images from Firebase one at a time so that we're not trying to access the database all at once, which could cause our app to stall or crash, and we don't want that. Uncheck Timer Always Fires and Timer Enabled, and let's give this an interval of 100. I've also decided to add a little floating button. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to be a little arrow pointing down to indicate that the user should scroll down. That takes care of the free design. We can now head over to the blocks editor. For this tutorial, I'm going to use a different teaching style. Rather than recreating the blocks, I'm going to explain what they do. Hopefully this will help you understand how the app actually works. Remember that if you like this method better, you can vote for this teaching style in future tutorials. First, let's take a look at our global variables. Just as the name suggests, the image list is going to be a list of all of the image components that we're using in the design. We create this list so that we can do the exact same thing to each of these images without having to copy and paste the same block over and over 5 million times, because that's crazy. Now, the tag list represents the tag list from our Firebase. We initialize this variable to a blank text box because we don't yet know if this tag will contain a number or a list of tags. We also have a URL list that will store the URLs for each of our tags, and variable n is going to be a counter variable that helps us iterate through the tag list and keep track of clock ticks. We'll talk more about these variables as we come to them. Now, the first thing we need to do is initialize our image list. If you've watched a lot of my other tutorials, you should already be familiar with this procedure. We're creating a list of similar items, and in this case, we have a list of images. We have 10 images on the design, so this list needs to have 10 items. Even though we're only using 5 of them right now, this list still needs to have 10 image names, one for each image on the design. So if you added 50 image components to your design, then this list needs to have all 50 images, even if you've only created 5 tags in Firebase. Now, remember that we didn't set any properties for these images on the design. Instead, we're going to loop through each of these images using the list that we just created. For every item in the image list, we're going to set the width of that item to be the same width as the vertical scroll arrangement. Now, the vertical scroll arrangement was set to be the same width as the screen. So that means that each one of these images will also be set to fill the width of the entire screen. Their height will resize accordingly, so we don't have to worry about setting the height. So why are we using this method? What if you had 50 image components on the screen? Are you going to go through all 50 images and manually set their width and height? What if you don't like the way it looks or you want to change it up? Then you have to go back and set the width and height again for all 50 images. Instead of doing the same thing 50 different times, we just create a simple procedure that loops through our image list and does the same thing for us over and over again. Now, we need to make sure that these two procedures execute as soon as the app starts, so we call them in the screen's initialize event. We initialize the image list first, and then we set the images the way we want them to look. Once we've set our screen, we can then grab the tag list from Firebase so that we can populate the images. The getValue procedure will trigger Firebase db.getValue. Each time we request a tag, we might not be doing the exact same thing, so we need to tell this event what to do for each tag. Our W tags really are kind of the same. The goal is to take this URL and put it into an image, but the tag list is unique. So we need to set up a condition inside of this event. The condition is pretty simple. If we're requesting the tag list from Firebase, then we're going to do this. Otherwise, for every other tag in this project bucket, do something else. Inside the tag list condition, we have another condition. If the value is a number, do this. Otherwise, do that. Now remember that we gave ourselves the option to enter a number. So if we had 50 wallpaper images and we enter 50 into the tag list, then we should see all 50 wallpapers in order from 1 to 50. How do we do that? We're going to use the global variable tag list and convert it to an empty list. Now we can populate this list with the names of those tags using numeric iteration. This loop allows us to assign a number to a variable. We're going to start at number 1 and end at the value that's been specified in the tag list from Firebase. And we're going to store that value in the global tag list variable. So the first loop is going to be W1, the second loop is W2, the third loop is W3, and we'll continue looping until we reach the last number that we specified in Firebase. And that takes care of the number condition. If you decided to specify certain wallpapers, then as long as you used CSV format, your data is already in a list. We just need to specify where we want to put that data, and in this case, we're going to use the global variable tag list. Once we satisfy both of these conditions, we need to turn on the delay clock. We're going to come back to this part in just a second and skip over to the delay clock. The purpose of this clock is to load each image from Firebase one at a time. We want the user to know that we're loading images, so we have this little block that's going to update the screen's title as each image loads. We can use a join block to create the string of text. So if we had 5 images, this text will display as loading images 1 of 5, then 2 of 5, then 3 of 5, and so on. Once we reach the end of the images, we need to turn off this clock and update the screen's title so that it's not stuck saying loading images 5 of 5. You can change these titles to whatever you want. So if this is the condition that stops the clock, then this is the condition that executes while the clock is running. During each clock tick, we want to set the images one at a time, starting with image 1. In order to get the W tags from Firebase, we would need to write W1, W2, W3, but we don't have to write that out 5 million times. We can just use the tag list that we created earlier and specify the index as variable n. Each time the clock ticks, n gets incremented by 1. On the first clock tick, n equals 1. So we look for index 1 in the tag list, which is W1. On the second clock tick, n equals 2. So we look for index 2 in the tag list, which is W2. Notice that each time the clock ticks, we are requesting a W tag from Firebase, which means that each time the clock ticks, we're triggering the Firebase GotValue event. And each time this event triggers, we check the tag. So on clock tick number 1, the tag we're requesting is W1. Is the tag list? No, it's W1. So this condition gets ignored, and we jump straight to the else condition, which sets the first image in our image list. Notice here that we've offset n by -1. When n equals 1 down here in the clock event, then n equals 2 in the Firebase event because this block will execute immediately after this block is triggered. This is because the clock is ticking faster than we're able to talk to Firebase. We want n to be the same number during each event, so we just offset by -1 to fix the problem. So on the first clock tick, image 1 gets set to the first index in the tag list. Now, the value that is returned should be a URL, so we can take that URL and store it in the first index of the URL list. Now we have 3 lists that look like this. We have a list of images, we have a list of W tags, and we have a list of the URLs associated with those W tags. Now, depending on how many images you've decided to place on the design viewer, this process can take anywhere from 1 second to a whole minute. Once the process has finished, the user can click on any image and set the image as their wallpaper. In order for that to happen, we need to create click events for each of these images. We have a procedure that will set the wallpaper to the requested index in the URL list. As soon as we call this procedure, we automatically trigger the after action event. If we were successful in setting the wallpaper, then we can simply notify the user with a message. For each of the image components that you add to the design, you must create an image click event. We want each of the images to do the exact same thing, so rather than copying and pasting the same block a million times, we just call the set wallpaper procedure and pass the corresponding value for n. For image 1, n should equal 1. For image 2, n should equal 2. And that's all you need to do. Super easy, right? So let's run this app and see what it looks like. The first image loads and it takes up the entire screen. Notice that the title bar is changing to indicate the images that are currently loading. Once all of the images have finished loading, the title bar changes to say wallpaper free because this is the free design. We also have this little floating bar icon that doesn't do anything but indicates that we should scroll down. If we scroll down, you can see all of the wallpapers. Now let's go into Firebase and you'll notice that I've added 5 more W tags. I'm going to change the tag list to say 10. The user has not updated their app and I have not changed anything in the AIA file. I'm just going to refresh the screen and voila. Notice that the title bar now says 10 images total instead of 5. And once the images have finished loading, I can scroll down and see all 10 wallpapers. I can go back into Firebase and say show wallpaper 10 and wallpaper 5, refresh the app again, and you only see wallpaper 10 and wallpaper 5. Pretty neat, right? Now I'm just going to click on one of these and it should take a second for the success message to pop up. Once it pops up, I'm going to close the app, and there we go. The selected wallpaper has been set. So that sums it up for the free tutorial. Now, this is the design for the Pixii Bomb Squad. Notice that instead of going straight to the wallpapers, we have categories. If we click on one of these categories, there's a very simple checkerboard animation before going straight to the category images. And we can specify which images we want to show, just like we did in the tutorial. In this design, if you click on any image, you have the option of viewing a full-sized version of that image or immediately setting it as your wallpaper. So let's view the wallpaper, and there we go. We've got a full-size version to look at. We can also go back to the category we were just in and select another image. Now, for those of you who paid attention during this video, you're going to get a reward. If you followed these instructions on the screen correctly, then I will send you the Pixii Bomb Squad design for this tutorial. This offer is only available through the end of April 2018. All right, good job, guys. We are done. Visit my Patreon page where you can find out more about being part of the Pixii Bomb Squad. Check out the AppyBuilder Community where you can get help on projects you're currently working on and find more tips and tutorials created by community members. That's all for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to thumbs up the video and have a great day. Bye.